So the next gland for study is the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland, which is also called as the suprarenal gland, it is present on the top of your kidneys. The adrenal gland is made up of two parts, the outer part called adrenal cortex, the inner part which is called the adrenal medulla. The adrenal cortex consists of outer zona glomerulosa, middle zona fasciculata, innermost zona reticularis. Zona glomerulosa releases mineralocorticoids. The main mineralocorticoid is aldosterone. And as you have studied aldosterone in excretion and osmoregulation, aldosterone is a part of the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. It acts on the distal convoluted tubule and helps in the reabsorption of sodium ions. The zona fasciculata secretes glucocorticoids. The main glucocorticoid is cortisol. Other than that, corticosterone also, cortisone also. But the principal 95% of your blood has got cortisol. It helps in proteolysis, breakdown of proteins into amino acids, but it inhibits the cellular uptake of amino acids, does not allow the cell to use amino acid as source of energy. It helps in the breakdown of lipids, so it helps in lipolysis, and now these fatty acids can be used for gluconeogenesis. It also helps in the breakdown of glycogen into glucose, so it promotes glycogenolysis as well as gluconeogenesis. So, whenever our brain and body is under mental and physical stress, cortisol helps a very important role helping the body to overcome the stress by providing our brain with the glucose that it needs for energy source. That is why it is a stress hormone, helps us to overcome stress. It's also an anti-inflammatory hormone. Histamine, which is inflammatory, cortisol works against it, decreases our inflammation. It cortisol is also used to prevent graft rejection during kidney transplant and other organ transplant. Cortisol, cell mediated immunity, स्पेशली किलर टी सेल्स की एक्टिविटी को स्लो डाउन करता है, इसलिए वो ऑर्गन डोनेशन के टाइम पे सक्सेसफुल डोनेशन की चांसेस बढ़ा देता है. The other cortical gland, the cortical hormone, is adrenal androgens, which help in the growth of eggshell hair, facial hairs, and pubic hairs, and also promotes sex drive. So this is a main androgen in the case of females, whereas males have androgen produced by the adrenal gland as well as the testis. Adrenal medulla, on the other hand, releases hormones called epinephrine, also called adrenaline, and norepinephrine, also called as noradrenaline, which are synthesized from the amino acid tyrosine. Together, they are called catecholamines. They are a part of your sympathetic responses. These are called emergency hormones or the fright, flight, and fight hormones. They cause increase in the rate of heartbeat. They cause the piloerection. They increase the depth of respiration. They increase glucose utilization. All these effects are brought about by the epinephrine and norepinephrine. Now, the gonadal hormones that we are going to discuss in the chapter human reproduction also. Testes and ovaries are the primary sex organs in males and females, respectively. The testes release a hormone called testosterone, responsible for sperm formation and secondary sexual characters in males. Similarly, ovaries secrete estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is primarily responsible for secondary sexual characters in female. Progesterone is called the pregnancy hormone. It maintains the endometrium for pregnancy. Estrogen also helps in the development of secondary sexual characters and even development of mammary glands and the milk alveoli at the time of pregnancy. There are many non-endocrine structures which also secrete hormones, like the kidneys, which secrete erythropoietin that helps in the formation of RBCs. The juxtaglomerular cells, which is responsible for renin, that is also responsible for renin-angiotensin aldosterone mechanism. हार्ट सिक्रीट करता है एट्रियल नाट्रियूरेटिक फैक्टर, जो सोडियम को फिल्ट्रेट में से निकाल के जो सोडियम को ब्लड में से निकाल के फिल्ट्रेट में डाल देता है. So from the blood, the sodium is put into the filtrate, and that is where the sodium is lost in urine. And that process is called as natriuresis. That is why it is called as a natriuretic factor. So it helps the sodium to move from the filtrate into the urine. So it helps in the removal of sodium. So it's a natriuretic factor. It will decrease the blood pressure. The gastrointestinal tract secretes gastrin, which helps with the secretion of HCl and pepsinogen. Cholecystokinin, which stimulates the pancreatic enzymes, constriction of the gall bladder. Secretin, it is a hormone which helps in the secretion of the pancreatic juices. And gastric inhibitory peptide, which inhibits gastric secretion. These are the extra details, some of them which are not required. So stick to what I have just said and to the NCERT text. So after looking at all these hormones, we have seen that the hormones are of different types. It can be a peptide hormone, polypeptide hormone, and a protein hormone, such as insulin, glucagon, the pituitary hormones, and the hypothalamic hormones. The steroid hormones, they include cortisol, testosterone, estradiol, and progesterone. Iodothyronins include the thyroid hormones, and epinephrine is an amino acid derivative. जो प्रोटीन हॉर्मोन्स है उनका काम करने का तरीका थोड़ा अलग होता है. प्रोटीन हॉर्मोन्स जो होते हैं, ओके, ये वाटर सोल्यूबल हॉर्मोन्स है. ये सेल मेम्ब्रेन को पास नहीं करते, इसलिए उनके जो रिसेप्टर्स होते हैं वो सेल मेम्ब्रेन पे होते हैं. So hormone, which is a protein hormone like FSH, will bind on the receptors present on the cell membrane. That will cause response 1, and that response 1 will result in the formation of a secondary messenger like cyclic adenosine monophosphate, calcium inositol triphosphate, जिसके वजह से biochemical responses होंगे, and then the biochemical response will ultimately result into a physiological response. Like for example, in the case of FSH, it is the growth of the ovaries. During our regular lectures, I have told you the details of these mechanisms. So right now is a quick recap of these steps, and in a stepwise manner, you will learn what happens one after the other. Proteins are protein hormones are fast acting. They work like a domino effect. Whereas the lipid hormones, the steroidal hormones, which are lipid soluble, like estrogen, they pass the cell membrane. Lipid, bhai, cell membrane allows them to come in. So their receptors are present inside the cytoplasm, especially in the nucleus. They will form a hormone receptor complex within the cell. And here they are forming the hormone receptor complex on the cell membrane, yeah, in the cell membrane. Now this hormone receptor complex will bind to the DNA to form a gene hormone receptor complex, जिसकी वजह से वो जीन एक्टिवेट होगी, ट्रांसक्रिप्शन होगा, mRNA फॉर्म होगा, ट्रांसलेशन होगा, प्रोटीन फॉर्म होगा, and then it will bring about its particular effect. So that is how the steroid hormones work. Now in the end, some of the disorders about pituitary gland we have already discussed. With respect to thyroid gland, hypothyroidism is a condition where you see the decrease in the basal metabolic rate, tolerance for cold decreases, and the person feels fatigue. If the mother at the time of pregnancy suffers from hypothyroidism, the child is developed with a condition which is called cretinism, where there is dwarfism, mental retardation, deaf mutism, wrinkled skin, sparse hairs, and many such conditions. In an adult, if there is hypothyroidism, it causes myxedema, and a classical symptom of myxedema is subcutaneous fat deposition and swelling. Low BMR तो होगा ही. Hyperthyroidism can cause exophthalmic goiter, which is also called as the Graves disease, जहाँ पे eyeballs bulge out होते हैं और goiter भी होता है. Okay? Goiter का मतलब होता है large thyroid gland. ये हाइपरथायरॉयडिज्म में भी हो सकता है और हाइपो में भी हो सकता है. जैसे हाइपो का एक कंडीशन है जिसको हम बोलते हैं सिंपल गोइटर, जो आयोडीन की डेफिशिएंसी की वजह से हो सकता है, और वहां पे भी आपको गोइटर दिखाई देगा. एड्रिनल मेडुल जो एड्रिनल ग्लैंड के डिसऑर्डर्स है, उसमें हाइपरथायरॉयडिज्म कॉजेस कुशिंग सिंड्रोम, where there is increased effects of glucocorticoids which causes gluconeogenesis. There is hyperglycemia, and hyposecretion causes the conditions called Addison's disease, जहाँ पे ग्लूकोज और मिनरल कॉर्टिकॉइड्स का लेवल जो होता है वो कम होता है. So, with respect to pancreas, we have spoken about diabetes mellitus. ADH के बारे में हम excretion और osmoregulation में डिस्कस करते हैं. So that for hormonal coordination and chemical control and coordination, इतनी सारी चीजें आपको गुलेल सीरीज में सिनॉप्सिस के नोट्स में से क्विकली रिवाइज करना होगा.